How to pass the 1.5-mile run, even if you're out of shape. So I'm Dr. Ray Peralta, physical therapist, a run coach, also a U.S. Marine veteran, and I have almost 10 years of experience in the field of exercise, rehab, just getting people faster. So if you're struggling to pass your 1.5-mile run test, you're not alone. Nearly 75% of adults, right, don't meet the basic activity guidelines. And there was a study that showed that 77% of young Americans would be unfit for military service without a waiver. The good news, you can pass your 1.5 mile run, even if you're out of shape, slow, or don't consider yourself a runner. I'm going to show you how. Okay. So I'm going to break down why most people fail the 1.5 run, how to train smarter and not harder, how the average person could get to an 8 to 9 minute per mile pace, or even faster if you want, and a simple plan you could follow starting today. And if you want a copy of this Google Doc and to learn more about running faster, I'm sharing it in my free community. Click the link in the description to join. So, why most people fail the 1.5-mile run? It's not because you're not a runner. You don't need elite genetics. You don't have to be born in Kenya or run like a Kenyan. You just need enough metabolic fitness to hold the pace, right? You need the aerobic and anaerobic fitness to hold the pace for anywhere from, like, depending on how fast you want to run it, but let's say 10 to 13 minutes, right? Most people can run one 400-meter or quarter-mile lap in 2 minutes, but running six of them back to back, right? Most people, unless you're trained, it's going to be hard to do. And that is going to require the aerobic conditioning here, right? Not just mental toughness, or you just think you want to do it, you believe you can do it. You actually have to, test yourself that you can actually do it. So body weight matters more than people want to admit. If you're carrying excess weight, it slows you down, increasing your injury risk. So get your body fat percentage. You could use a BMI calculator, but more accurately, it's going to be your body fat. You could use, there's different ways to measure body fat percentage. There's scales, tape measure, right? You could measure some body circumference. You could work with a trainer, get your body skin folds measured. But regardless, find a way to measure your body fat. If you really can't, get to a place, let's use the BMI calculator. Anyway, losing just 10% of your body weight can significantly improve your run time. If you're a man, aim for under 18%. Ideally, the athletic range would be 6 to 13% body fat. If you're a woman, under 26%, ideally athletic range is like 14 to 20% body fat. Not because you're going to get leaner, you're going to look good, but because you're going to remove that excess dead weight and your joints have to carry for every step. A lot of people don't know this. Even if you're just 10 pounds overweight, that's 40 pounds of stress or impact forces going through your knee. And that's a big reason why a lot of overweight runners that I've noticed, I'm a physical therapist, end up getting hurt. Just they're a bit overweight, and then now they're doing the sport of running, and their joints can't take the load or the stress, and they end up getting these overuse injuries. Weak legs, that's also another big thing, is terrain for weak legs, right? Weak legs equal poor running economy. Running loads your joint with 2 to 3 times your body weight every step. So if you're 150 pounds, right, you're like, oh, 150 pounds is not much. If you that's what I weigh, but that's 340, 50 pounds of force for every foot strike, every time your foot hits the ground. So strength training is what improves your running economy, your pace, your shock absorption, injury resilience, load tolerance, right? Because if you have a stronger leg, it could tolerate the demands of running, and you're going to have less risk of overuse injuries. So if your legs are strong, you spend less energy to run the same pace. This is where you see really strong athletes. You're like, man, they look pretty strong. How are they able to still run fast? Is because they have strong legs, right? You'll see sometimes people who look like they should be playing football can still hit like a 6 minute mile, all right? Or like someone who's like a Navy SEAL or Army Ranger who, again, looks very jacked or muscular because they have really strong legs, who could withstand the impact of force of running. You still have to train running, of course, but strong legs goes a long way. So what pace you actually need to? So if your goal is 12 minutes for 1.5 mile, that equals to 8 minute per mile pace. Break it down. Each lap is equal to 2 minutes. So 6 laps would be 12 minutes. And that's why knowing your pace and training zones is critical. And if you're competitive, right, you're aiming for that 6 minute per mile pace. That's 9 minutes for the 1.5 mile run. That means each quarter mile or 400 meter would be a minute 30 or 90 seconds. So action step, use a GPS watch, right? It doesn't even have to be expensive. It could be like an old Garmin, an old Apple Watch, a Fitbit, whatever. Just as something to track your paces. Even, heck, if you want to go really old school, get like a Casio, stopwatches, like analog. You just press and pause, and then just look at the paces there, the times there, and then you could just transfer it over, pen and paper. But with the smart watches, obviously, you can link to apps. All right, there's Strava, Garmin, etc. That way, guessing is not training, and you're able to track your pace. You can track your heart rate zones if you have, especially if you have a smartwatch, And then your effort scale, this is going to be more your perceived effort. You're just going to have to put this in, is from 0 to 10, how hard it felt. But you want to track these things to see your improvement over time. And then you also know what paces you're hitting each workout, so you're not guessing. And then you could track your progress every week. Hey, like, are you hitting your goal paces per the workouts each week? And if not, what can you adjust? What do you have to do better? The workouts you need. So you need at least once a week and do a speed workout. Vary it, so you're not going to do the same speed workout each week. So maybe one week you do 400-meter repeats, the other week you do 800-meter, the other week you do a kilometer, the other week you do a mile repeat, the other week you do a hill sprint, right? You just keep varying the different speed workouts. These build power speed and tolerance, lactate tolerance. So 1 time a week. A sample workout would be like, for example, 6 by 400-meter repeat or quarter mile repeat with 90 to 120-second rest. Tempo runs is 30, 45 minutes at your threshold pace. Teaches the body to hold the faster pace with control. Variations like a fartlek run. Fartlek is where you just vary the paces, where it's kind of like an interval, right? But it's not these short ones. It's a bit longer. Right? Maybe you're running from block to block. And if you live in a city, if you're running in a trail, you run from one tree to the third tree or the fifth tree, whatever. You vary it, or from a lamppost to the next lamppost. So you just vary the speeds while you're running. It's called the fartlek. And then so it's like a type of interval, and then you could vary. You may even do calisthenics. So you might run for like 5 minutes, and then you stop and do a set of 10 push-ups. Then you run again, and stop and do 20 squats, and so forth until you complete like 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So you do a tempo run or a fartlek run at least once a week. You could vary, of course. You could switch between the two type of workouts. Then you want to do an aerobic base training. So this is just an easy run at conversational pace, zone 2, 1 or 2 a week. If your heart rate spikes too much, use run walk intervals until you adapt. And then once a week, you want to do a long run, right? Minimum 3 miles, but ideally more closer to 5 or 6 miles. Running longer than your test distance makes the test feels easier. If impossible to complete a long run, again, you could do run walk. For example, run 1 minute, walk for 4 minutes. If you're really pressed for time or worried about injuries, just run 3 times a week. 1 tempo run, 1 speed run, 1 long run. So strength training, non-negotiable, at least 2 to 3 sessions a week. Squats, lunges, deadlifts, core work. A 1 hard set to near failure, 8 to 12 reps, is enough when programmed well. And if you don't have equipment, you could use calisthenics, but you have to know how to progress them, right? You can't just continue to do air squats. You're going to have to do like single leg squats, static holds, like isometric squats, like all these different types of squat variations if you're just going to do calisthenics. However, you can set up a home gym and not have to overcomplicate it. Bands, weighted backpack, adjustable dumbbell, kettlebell. And if you're really pressed for time, at least focus on the main two, the squat and the deadlift. That's a primary exercise for lower body strength, right? Let's say you could only make it to the gym to use a barbell, just do the squat or deadlift or both. And then maybe only spend 15 or 20 minutes working on that. And then you could get home and do the accessory, the smaller muscle groups, which you could do more easily do with body weight, like the core work, the calves or hamstrings with a band. That way, you're at least focusing on the squat and deadlift, and you're still training the smaller muscle groups on their own or as part of the whole workout. But you don't have to spend hours in the gym, right? Just training the main movement. The squat and deadlift may take you like 10 minutes or so with warm-ups and things like that. And then the accessory work can maybe take you another 15 or 20 minutes. You could be in and out in like 30 minutes or so if you program it right. So a good strength goal for the barbell back squat would be women, can you squat 1.5 times your body weight? Men, 2 times your body weight. The reason I'm a big fan of the squat is just because it's kind of involves all the main muscle groups that are involved in running of the lower body, right? And if you get stronger with the squat, oftentimes this also leads to a faster time. Like when I was working on improving my time, I remember when I was training for the Marine Corps, I remember just doing barbell squats actually got my time down. I'm like, whoa, I started running 6-minute miles, even though I thought it was just a running, but the strength training really helped me hit that 6 minute per mile pace. I'm like, first I was like, no way, don't you just have to run? But strength training is such a game changer. So don't neglect training your legs. Next, you want to do cross training and deload. So every third or fourth week, reduce your running load. So on the third or fourth week, you'll cross train by reducing the loads. Instead of running on, let's say, the fourth week of the month, the last week of the month, you'll maybe go bike, swim, elliptical, row. You let your body recover from impact. This prevents overuse injury and burnout. Now, if you're only running 3 days a week, another way to boost your endurance or your fitness is to add 2 days of cross training. For example, 2 days of biking, or maybe one day you bike and another day you do a ruck, 30 to 45 minutes. A ruck is just a way to do a backpack. You put on your back and you walk with it, or maybe do an incline walk on a treadmill. Mobility training. Every day, simply stretch or your stiff or tight areas. Mobility is also very important, especially if you're tight or injury prone. Spend 2 to 3 minutes per tight area. right? So common errors are usually the low back, hip flexors, the quads, hamstrings, and calves. And yes, that means you might be spending 15 to 20 minutes on just mobility alone in a day, especially if you're very tight. Again, it doesn't have to be all at once. You could split it into movement snacks, like a morning, you work on your low back. Afternoon, you might work on your hip flexors. Evening, you might work on your calves, right? So you kind of split it up that way. That way, you're not having to worry about getting it all done at once. Especially good if you're like an office worker, you work behind a desk or something, or maybe you're a student and you're sitting at a desk studying all day. Common mistakes to avoid: skipping strength training, right? You make sure you don't skip the strength training. I know sometimes you're like, oh, I'm too busy. You can find time to strength train, right? It doesn't have to be long. Weak legs equals slow legs. Ignoring old injuries, right? If you have keeping a recurring injury, an old injury, you start noticing stiffness returning. That's a warning sign. Address mobility and strength before ramping up the mileage. Training fast but not at the right pace, right? Hitting random speeds won't help. Train at your actual goal pace. There is a thing as running too fast as well. Like if you're running way too fast beyond your ability level, it's going to take you way too long to recover. You want to be smart about it. Don't try to do the speed work way too hard. That's beyond your ability level, and you end up getting hurt. Actually, a lot of times people get hurt because they try to think, oh, I'm gonna be a sprinter. I'm gonna sprint a 400-meter all out when you're not conditioned for that amount of work, and you end up getting hurt. It's better just be smart, right? Be realistic. If you're running a 10-minute per mile pace, maybe just aim for like a 9-minute per mile, just go a minute per mile faster instead of trying to go from a 10 to a 6 minute per mile pace, right? So be realistic about your starting pace and don't try to push the speed workout way too fast beyond your ability level. Overtraining or doing too much too soon, right? Again, don't jump to like 5 runs a week. If you're a complete beginner, just start with 3 runs per week, especially if you're out of shape or overweight. And then as you get more skilled, more conditioned, then you could, go up to like 4 runs a week, 5 runs per week, right? If you're more competitive. A sample training plan, right? If you're already healthy and you're already fit, you could do 5 runs. But for most people, I'm actually going to recommend starting with 3 runs a week, right? One speed session, one long run, one easy run, and then 2 days of cross training. And obviously, you want to do your strength training as well, a week, 2 to 3 times a week, strength section, and then do your stretching, mobility work. Track your progress every 4 to 6 weeks. Retest your 1.5 mile run. Look at your pace, right? Are you actually hitting the goal pace you want, or the goal time you want for the 1.5 mile run? Check your heart rate. Check your effort. How does the effort feel? Does it feel too challenging? Is it comfortably hard? Right? You want to be able to finish the race, not just gas out in the first half of the race, right? Like, what good is it if you run out and then you can't? You're like crawling the second half of the race. You want to be even. You want to be able to finish the entire race and be comfortably hard, because oftentimes if you're doing this for a fitness test, you're often doing the run, then you're also doing, like I remember when I was in the Marine Corps, it was like, oh, then you have to do the pull-ups, and then you have to do the crunches, right? You're doing all these other events. So if you're completely wasted from the run, oftentimes you're not able to complete the other events. So you still want to have energy in the tank, so you can still, fight or operate in the complete the other events you need to complete. And recovery is a secret weapon. You don't get faster from training, you get faster from recovering from training. Focus on getting enough sleep at night, right? Eating enough healthy foods, includes carbs, protein, healthy fats. Drink enough fluids, right? Water daily, add electrolytes. Under recovered legs equals slow legs. And if you're serious about passing the 1.5 mile run, again, focus on the right pace zones that you need, right? Obviously, the right zones, strength training, proper recovery, tracking and testing yourself consistently. Again, you want to, going back to tracking, you just want to go back. Yeah, you want to track every week, but then test yourself. You want to retest and test yourself every 4 to 6 weeks to actually make sure you're on path. So I currently have 3 spots open to work with me for one-to-one coaching to run faster. If you're curious, there's a link to apply in the description. First come, first serve.